The years leading up to the Civil War were the most divisive and tumultuous in the nation's history. Decades of legislative compromise over slavery had brought the country to the breaking point, and savage fighting between pro-slave gangs and free staters in Kansas and beyond had begun ripping at the very fabric of the nation. With our country now finding itself in circumstances which some are comparing to pre-Civil War America, comes the third volume of Sidney Blumenthal's multi-volume political life of Abraham Lincoln, All the Powers of Earth. The new book is a fascinating and timely examination of the events that led to the crisis and of the man who would emerge from the political wilderness to save the Union. Journalist and historian Sidney Blumenthal is a former advisor to President Bill and Hillary Clinton, and he joins us now. Sidney, thank you so much for joining us again to talk about your book.
Well, thank you, Raphael.
So Sidney, the heart of the new volume roughly covers the 4 years between the moment when Lincoln re-entered active political life and is elected president of the United States. But you have this fascinating, basically 200-page introduction, which sets up the context within which Lincoln was forced to act and react. I know it's a tall order, but I wonder if you could summarize the key events that shaped that context.
This is a story of the greatest crisis of American democracy, and it's something that illuminates where we are today. We can always learn from the past, and especially this crisis. Lincoln is an obscure lawyer. He served one term in Congress. He's riding on old horses or buckboards or railroads from county courthouse to county courthouse in central Illinois, pressing cases as a lawyer. He's unknown, virtually. And what's going on in the country is that things are completely falling apart. The parties are falling apart. Lincoln's party, the Whig Party, is split over the extension of slavery. The presidency of Franklin Pierce has disintegrated over the issue. Lincoln's great rival, his perennial rival, Senator Stephen A. Douglas, who is a force of nature and a master demagogue, has sponsored the Kansas-Nebraska Act. He wants to be president. He wants something that he can claim as an achievement that will carry him to the presidential nomination of his party, then the Democratic Party. And he wants to win the Southerners. He proposes the Kansas-Nebraska Act. He opens the territories of the Great Plains to whoever settles it, and they can determine whether it's going to be slave or free. And the Missouri ruffians run in to claim it for slavery, and other settlers come in to claim it for freedom, for free labor. And they immediately begin a conflict and start killing each other. And armies are opposed to each other on the plains. Lincoln is thrust back into politics. He begins trying to find his footing. At the same time, Senator Charles Sumner, the abolitionist senator from Massachusetts, steps on the floor of the Senate to denounce the crime against Kansas by the pro-slavery forces. They have sacked the free state town of Lawrence, he insults the Southerners. A Southern congressman, Preston Brooks, is virtually assigned by the powers that be who control the Congress, the Southern great beasts of the Congress and powers, and he walks into the Senate and canes Charles Sumner nearly to death with a cane tipped with a gold handle. Blood flows through the floor of the Senate. Sumner is almost killed. He's virtually removed from politics. This inspires somebody else at the same time, John Brown, who at the middle of the night goes off and kills pro-slavery settlers in Kansas. And within 10 days of these events, Lincoln founds the Illinois Republican Party, the vehicle that within 4 years will carry him to the presidency.
So you talk about Stephen Douglas, and in fact, someone said that your book is one of the best political biographies of Stephen Douglas, as well as Abraham Lincoln. But Stephen Douglas clearly has a huge impact, negative impact on the country because of his vaulting ambition. In 1958, Lincoln decides to challenge Douglas for the U.S. Senate seat. And it was during this campaign where the famous Lincoln-Douglas debates happened, 7 debates. At the center of those debates was, of course, the issue of slavery. I wonder if you could spell out for us what exactly were the contending positions. What was Douglas' position on slavery? And more importantly, what was Lincoln's position on slavery?
Lincoln was completely opposed to the extension of slavery in the territories. And he believed that slavery was, as he said, dozens of times in many speeches, in each speech, wrong, 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 and wrong. If slavery is not wrong, nothing is wrong, said Lincoln. Douglas believed the policy of what Lincoln called don't care, indifference. Douglas said he didn't care whether the territories were free or slave. It was up to the settlers. He said that was democracy or popular sovereignty. And so they faced off in their famous debates. Lincoln announced his nomination with his great House Divided speech. He said the country will become all one thing or all the other. A house divided cannot stand. It will either be all free or all slave. And he believed that the people would put slavery, as he said, in the course of ultimate extinction. Douglas said that the Declaration of Independence was made only for white men, and that it excluded blacks who were an inferior race. Lincoln said the Declaration of Independence, which was the basis of the country, in stating all men are created equal, included, as he said, Negroes, and that they had natural rights as well. They faced off in 7 debates. Lincoln actually won the popular vote, but he lost because state legislatures picked the senators, and the districts had been gerrymandered by Douglas, whose party controlled the Illinois state legislature. And so Lincoln lost, even though he won the popular vote. I don't know if that sounds familiar to people now.
So, Sidney, as you said at the beginning, there are clear parallels between what was happening then, or at least at the very beginnings of what was happening then, and our times today. What are the lessons for us from this experience?
Lincoln always warned against disunion. He spoke against it continually. He warned against a house divided. He said it would become all one thing or all the other. And he said that those who were seeking disunion were the source of the trouble. And then in the Cooper Union speech, and I repeat, he said to the Southerners seeking secession, you will either rule or ruin at all events. He condemned that. And at the end of that speech, he said, right makes might. We now have a president who says that any attempt to impeach him will cause a civil war. No one in American politics, even in the 1850s and in 1860, the decisive year in which Lincoln was elected, who was a responsible figure, threatened civil war. So we're in an unprecedented situation, but it's a situation in which our democracy faces a threat to our Constitution and our varied democracy. Lincoln rose to the occasion. Lincoln understood the crisis, and Lincoln was prepared to lead the country and the Union through it. He was a self-disciplined, focused, determined person who had worked out all the arguments of all the issues that were facing the country at the time. And he had a deep and profound understanding of what the Constitution was, what the history of the country was, and where the politics were tending, as he said in his House Divided speech.
You know, one final question, Sidney. In the book, after Lincoln gives his Cooper Union speech, someone says, this is the greatest man since St. Paul. As your book shows, that isn't the case, but he was a great man, not just a great leader. Just reading your book and reading about this great human being makes one want to be a better human being. I wonder what effect it's had on you, spending all these years reading and thinking and writing about this great American.
Well, Lincoln is great company. I've spent years writing this series of books. There are 2 more to come. And I can't imagine anyone I'd rather spend time with than Abraham Lincoln. He has a great sense of humor. And he has a deeply incisive mind. He's somebody who grew up in the deepest poverty and was a self-made man. He worked out all of his understanding of the problems facing the country himself in isolation, slowly studying. And he overcame his own depression and became an extraordinarily self-disciplined person. At the Cooper Union speech, when the New Yorkers, the notables of the day, saw Abraham Lincoln, this figure from the far west, Illinois, he appeared in a rumpled suit, his hair was tousled, he spoke in a high, reedy voice, a thin voice, and they thought, who is this? Why should we listen to this person? And then they were stunned by his arguments, his words, the way, his phrases, the way in which he wrote and spoke. And at the end, as you said, one of the journalist presidents said he's the greatest man since St. Paul. He was also a lawyer who framed every argument in order to win the case. He knew what juries were. He knew who ordinary people were. He knew the arts of persuasion. Lincoln was a practical politician his whole life, and to the marrow of his bone. But he was somebody who saw that in the service of the nation, and that's where he served in the presidency during the greatest crisis of democracy and the Constitution the country has ever faced, with lessons for us all today.
All right, Sidney, well, thank you so much for talking to us today. It's a wonderful book. I hope our viewers go out and buy it and read it.
Thank you, Raphael.